According to a 2009 study by Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, with the exception of CBS, every major media outlet in the United States shares at least one board member with at least one drug company. Let me put it in perspective for you. These board members wake up, they go to a meeting at Merck or Pfizer, and then they have their driver take them over to a meeting with NBC to decide what kind of programming that network is going to air. And for those board members who aren't pulling double duty with a media conglomerate and a big drug company, they still understand that they can't be honest and objective about Big Pharma because Big Pharma pays their bills. Drug companies spend about $5 billion a year on advertising with these corporate media outlets. So when Pfizer or Merck or Eli Lilly or any of the drug companies kill or cripple Americans with defective drugs, do you really think these board members are going to allow their story to be told on the air? It can take anywhere from 3 days to a full week before the media reports on a drug or a medical device recall, if they report at all. In the case of Invokana, it took 32 days before television outlets reported a single story involving an FDA warning about the potential problems with the product. The FDA began warning about the extreme dangers of Cook IVC filters as early as 2010, and it took about 5 years before television media started reporting that to the public. And it's worth pointing out that in these instances, it was only through non-corporate, independent media outlets that these stories were told at all. It was the outlets who weren't being forced to remain silent about the drug industry. And you can replace IVC or Invokana with any other drug or product, and the story is all the same. Stryker hip implants, C8, Vioxx, Roundup, Xarelto, talcum powder, they're all the same thing. The corporate media doesn't care about these stories because they either share board members with these companies or because they want those companies to keep throwing dollars their way in big advertising dollars. These gigantic media corporations aren't going to do anything to threaten their relationship with big advertisers. Drugs are a cash cow advertising bonanza for corporate media. Fortunately, an increasing number of Americans are starting to wake up and realize that the mainstream media shouldn't be trusted on issues like this. In recent years, we've seen the alternative media experience rapid growth. The mainstream media has been losing credibility at a staggering rate, and Americans are starting to look elsewhere for the truth about what's really going on out there. As a result of that advertising money kicking around, the corporate media isn't permitted to report complex drug stories anymore. It's as if they don't understand things like the link between crony capitalism and the revolving door between the FDA and the drug industry. But the media is only one side of the story here. Big Pharma knows that if it wants to continue manipulating the public, it has to start with our elected officials in Washington, D.C. According to Open Secrets, Big Pharma spent more than $58 million on politicians just in 2016, the most amount they've spent on a direct contribution in the last quarter century. And when it comes to lobbying, few industries spend more than Big Pharma did last year. They spent a staggering $244 million to influence our elected leaders in Washington, D.C. And it looks like things are about to get much worse. You see, Big Pharma understands that their price gouging is starting to draw negative attention from the American public, and no matter how much they spend advertising or buying our politicians, they can't keep the public anger down forever. According to a new report by ProPublica, drug companies are offering huge money to any scientist, any professor or academic willing to author studies that are going to show that these drug markups are necessary. They're just fine. Their goal is to spread around enough money at universities to develop scientists and doctors who are going to create this fantasy story about how price gouging is just great for the American public, and then that story will be run by corporate media dominated by the drug industry.